Hey, Successfuls, it's Kelly. I love how some of the best business advice comes from the most unlikely places. This week, we're talking about The Art of Acting by Stella Adler, written by Howard Kessler. We do have a quick language warning on this one. Joelene got a little excited. This is the Success Through Community podcast.
So, you know me, I am the girl behind the camera. And when we decided to do like no video for this season, you know, my heart did like a complete happy dance, right? Right.
Yes,
Right.
I do.
So,
But to be fair, that was only partially for you and may go away because I hate to say it, but like video podcasting is so becoming a thing,
I don't
which
want to talk about it.
is really like, I don't have a problem in front of the camera, but it's really kind of annoying because the whole point of podcasting was that it was audio only.
Exactly.
When did it become this thing where you need like a podcast studio that's all cute and pretty, Candace Bure? Like, why? Why are you doing this to us?
Oh, Candace. Oh, Candace.
I mean, her studio is gorgeous. Have you seen it?
Of course it is. No, but I've seen
gorgeous.
I cannot see anything coming out of Candace Bure not being perfect.
I know. And she always has her guests like in person. But see, we can't do that because there's kind of a country boundary. But also, like, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think they plan out like a week or something and like fly in their guests because her podcast seems to be like one guest for the whole season kind of thing. And so I think they film and record like the entire thing in like a week.
Wow.
And then just parse it out, which is fantastic. If you have the ability and the finances to do that, more power to you.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
We're spreading it out. And so video just made it harder for us to make time to do it. Cause I'm going to be honest, I'm in PJs right now.
Me too.
So,
and they're PJs my mom bought me. So they're cute.
That's awesome. Okay, sorry, but back to your train of thought. Behind the camera.
My train of thought. Okay, so yeah, behind the camera, that's me. 20 years of being a photographer, and I've had family portraits with my kids done once, which they're 24 and 30, so that kind of time for an update. In other words, like I avoid being on the front line, so to speak, at all costs, right? I never had a desire to be center of the stage, which is why today's book might come as a shock to some people. I've mentioned it many, many times. It's one of my favorite business books. And every time I kind of tell anybody that when I'm asked, I get the response of, oh,
I remember being the person saying that because I think you said that in one of our season 1 episodes, right?
Yeah, I believe I did. And it's been I read this book 20 years ago, and it's very, how do I say it? It's very true to form when it comes to business. So, without further ado, I'm going to tell you the book. I definitely want to talk today about a book called The Art of Acting by Stella Adler.
Yes.
Which was not actually written by her. I want to be very, very clear. It was authored by Howard Kissel, and it was actually written after she had passed away. This is a book that's at its core, it's about teaching you how to act, or how to be an actor, fancy. She is arguably, I would say, one of the most important acting teachers in American history. She in person taught people like Marlon Brando, Salma Hayek, even Robert De Niro, so many big names that we all recognize. Mm-hmm. But this book was put together by the author Howard Kissel. And he had I don't know who he is. He's an author, not an actor that I'm aware of. But
no, I don't think so.
Yeah, he put together her acting lessons all into a book and basically called it The Art of Acting by Stella Adler. And here we are turning it into a business book.
Yes. And I've actually spent time in one of her, one of the theaters named after her. I don't know.
Oh.
I don't know if it wasn't like the Stella Adler School, but it was in Hollywood. It might have actually been one of the places that she worked. I'm not entirely sure. I should probably know that, but I have spent time there, and it was a cool space to be in because, it was a small little 99 seat or close to 99 seat theater, but there was just a lot of history of her, on the walls and in the decor and everything around. And so it was very cool to be in that space.
Yeah. Like in the industry, as in Hollywood and acting and all that, she's a pretty big name.
Oh
She's
yeah.
pretty important. To me, I had no idea who she was because I'm not in that world. I am not a performer. I am far, far from being a performer. But I don't know why I picked up this book. I think it was actually recommended on a podcast, and I couldn't for the life of me remember who had recommended it because, again, it was 20 years ago that I read the book. And then I spent all night last night just kind of flipping through it and realizing I highlighted a lot in this book. So I think I want to give a very kind of high level view of why I believe that this book is so important for entrepreneurs, especially today. And but I do recommend it because it goes deep into a lot of things that you can definitely relate to as well, you as a performer and anybody else who is an entrepreneur or a solopreneur. I think they can really relate to it. So
Yeah,
sound good?
absolutely. It's funny because I am a performer. I have never read this book.
Oh,
And I think, I don't know. I don't think I've read a ton of books on acting because I've always been one of those people who just learns on the job, kind of.
yeah. And you
And
focus a lot on singing, right?
I do, but I mean, musical theater singing, so performing is a big part of it and
Mm-hmm.
characters and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, even in the business world, I'm very much a learn as I go kind of person.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Not that I never learn from teachers because I obviously do. I take courses and I learn from classes and stuff like that. But I kind of feel like to a large extent, experience is sometimes the best teacher.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
know,
and I don't disagree with that at all. Um, Absolutely. I have nothing to say. That's so right. You're going to learn from life experience and work experience always.
yeah.
Um, but there's other things you can learn too.
Absolutely.
So,
Well, obviously we learn from books or we wouldn't have this podcast season going
right?
on. So, no,
Right?
I'm very curious to hear like what you've gleaned from it and how you're relating it to
Okay.
business.
And I'm very excited to tell you. So, okay. So I think one of the very first things that this book digs deep into for me is the idea of being real. So actors really need to be true to themselves and give authentic performances to be believable. And as entrepreneurs, I think that we can learn from that. When you are being true to yourself and you're being real, in your business and you are portraying your true values and your true beliefs, you can connect better with your customers, right?
Yeah.
People can sense that authenticity and it builds, I don't know, like it builds trust, it builds loyalty. And especially today in the online world, I mean, you can see an inauthentic slime ball a mile away. Most people can.
Yeah.
And that's one of the huge things that Stella goes into in how to be. She's a method acting teacher, right? So
Hmm.
she really kind of dives deep into being the real character, being authentic into who this character is. And I really think that when you're running a business, you have to be authentic into who you and your business are. And that's one parallel I definitely took away from it.
True. I do
Um,
think, there's a lot of well-known situations where actors have employed this method acting to their personal detriment.
mhm.
So I think that it's very important to acknowledge here that, especially in the world of business, we are not talking about using this approach to become someone else. I mean, seeing other
Yes.
people that are successful and saying, okay, well, I'm going to embody everything that they embody and then I will be successful too. That is not how we're approaching this. This is
Absolutely.
about treating yourself and who you truly are and what your values are and completely embodying that. I
Right.
just want
So
to call that out.
absolutely. I mean, like we mentioned earlier, another podcaster slash amazing, talented, crazy actress, actually. I don't want to say crazy, but crazy
Crazy
talented is kind
talented,
of what I
yes.
meant to say. Sorry,
Yes.
Candace. Um, but it's one of those things that if we tried to embody everything that she portrays and she does, it would come off
Fake.
as a copy
Yeah.
for one. And copies are never as good as the originals. It doesn't matter what you're copying. So you're never going to be as good as the original. And I think we talked about that last week or the week before when we were talking about the blue ocean. You want to create your own your own ocean. You want to create your own environment and your own market in the world in order
Right.
to be successful. And copying and not being authentic is not how you're going to do it.
True. Although it's not, it's not to say that you don't glean from other people,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
I mean, obviously you see someone like Candace or anybody else and you say, I really love how she XYZ. And so then you
Exactly.
say,
It's
okay, well, how am I
inspiration.
going to embody that? Right. Like with her in particular, I personally love, like, she has this very welcoming, authentic quality to her. Like
Yeah.
you watch a video of hers or you listen to her podcast and you literally feel like this is your BFF talking to you. Now, it helps that for most of our generation growing up, like she was our BFF. You know what I
Absolutely.
mean? But still, I mean, there's an authenticity to how she comes off. And I think, I'm not gonna say like, oh, she and I are friends, but I have actually met her family before, like a bajillion years ago. And they were all very authentic and
Oh, I
very
bet.
like genuine people. And so, seeing that and saying, okay, I'm not going to do it in the way she does it, but I want to make sure that I come off as genuine, as authentic
Yep.
as she does is 100% appropriate. And for some people, and maybe this even helps our camera shy co-host here, but if you create for yourself the character of not only who you are, but who you want to be, and
Yep.
let yourself embody that character a la Sasha Fierce, but we won't really go there because that was kind of ridiculous. But, the concept of stepping out of the vulnerability of self and stepping into a character, there's a lot of reality to that, a lot of benefit as a performer, as someone who has to get up on stage in front of people. It's so much easier for me to do that when I'm playing someone else than when I'm being myself.
I
So
can see
much
that. I
easier.
can see that. Absolutely. For me, not so much.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair
um
enough.
Playing pretend doesn't work for me. I mean, I actually had, I had one slight ambition of being on stage once, and that was back in high school, and I auditioned for, the school play, and I was good. I was ready. And then I walked into the audition room, and then the lights turned on and at me, and the
Right.
lights around
The
me turned
spots.
off,
Yeah.
and I was like, what just happened? It just froze. It's not me. So
But that was
I
also one attempt. If you kept attempting, you would have gotten better at that.
I was quite content with knowing I don't belong on stage at that point. It really emphasized and solidified my feelings of being the girl behind the camera is where I need to be. And I'm
Fair
happy with
enough.
that. I love my life. I
No,
love
that's
my
great.
job, right?
No, and
So
honestly, we need people on all sides of the camera. Like
exactly.
it's
Yeah.
that's totally valid.
Yeah, and I think when you're talking about the authenticity of Candace and her family, I see that through and through. And I've been a big fan of the family since I was a kid, like who hasn't in our age.
Right.
But I think another and I hope, because like I said, you see it coming a mile away, but we're not always 100% right. But I hope that another podcaster, actor, wow, this is really coming full circle. Dax Shepard. I
Ah,
absolutely love Armchair.
armchair expert.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, if there's no authentically who he is in that podcast, then dude, he gets an Oscar for just breathing
Right.
because
No, he's so seems like himself in that. I would be
absolutely.
shocked to find that he's not like that.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly. So, and I think that that's kind of the core of the idea behind Stella's teachings in that book is it doesn't matter the character you're playing, whether it is a person on stage in a film or a business owner. You have to be authentic in that character. You have to be authentic in who you are. And as a business owner, that is who you are. So be authentic in who you are. Live by your values, run your business by your values, and, the truth shall shine through and 100% set you free, hopefully financially free. That's the goal here. But
Yes.
you know where I'm going with that.
I do. I'm curious, and apologies if I jump ahead in anything that you were planning to talk about, but
Hmm.
what you just described for many people is terrifying.
Yes.
Um, especially in the social climate that we have these days, where if you say something and a group of people don't like it, it's like the end of your life, right?
Right.
But even without that aspect, being that vulnerable to put yourself out there and say what you believe and, whatever, be that honest, that authentic, is scary because
It
you're
is.
inviting people to come in and not like you. So
Well,
I'm curious, does she address that? Does she talk at all about the fear revolving that kind of vulnerability? Because in method acting, yeah, you're portraying someone else, but if you're truly method acting, then you are becoming that someone else. So that vulnerability creeps back in, even though it's not really you. So does she
absolutely.
address that?
In a way, yeah, I got so many things to say on that. Uh,
I'm sure you do.
first, let's talk with the vulnerability and the concept of saying something that's gonna, upset people, especially today when you could be canceled by saying something so quickly and so easily. I want to say that when you are being authentic and you are being yourself, that does not mean that there are not going to be consequences to what you say and do.
For sure.
So if you are a jerk face and that is who you truly are, do not expect everyone to like you. It point blank.
Well, I
You're
hate to
just going
say
to
it,
be
but even if you're like the sweetest, nicest person in the world, don't expect everyone to like you because they just won't.
exactly. Not everyone's going to be in alignment with your values and your
Right.
beliefs. And if you are so set on that, then you want to surround yourself with like-minded people.
Yeah.
And you want your audience to be like-minded as well. It's and like I said earlier, that does not mean just because you are being who you are and you have every right to be who you are, say what you want, feel what you want, you're protected by laws and all of these fun things. It does not mean that there are no consequences to your actions. So good or bad, whether you're saying something or doing something, the consequences can be negative or they can be great. And being vulnerable, can I say that word today? Vulnerable.
How much
Um,
coffee? How much coffee have you had?
not enough. We have no we're out of international delight, plug here. So I've had tea and I'm regretting it
It's not
with
enough
all my
caffeine.
being.
That's fair. I got you. Vulnerable. We'll go with
Vulnerable.
vulnerable. Yes.
Yeah. Where was I? Oh yeah. So when there's consequences, point
Yes.
blank. And
Absolutely.
they could be good or bad. And vulnerability, I think, is so important, just being human. If you're not going to put yourself out there, whether it's for business, whether it's for relationships, whether it's for spirituality, no matter what it is, if you don't take that step, and even if you're scared, you do it scared, you're not going to move forward. And I think that's a huge
So
thing
true.
that needs to be recognized. Now, I wasn't going to touch on this but the book does. I wasn't going to today because I could do 2-3 episodes on this book. Don't get me wrong. But
Maybe there's a
yes,
master class in your future.
a masterclass on acting from the girl who is afraid of the light. um,
Hey, that's some great marketing right there. I'm just saying. I would
she
totally sign up for that.
all right, good to know. I'm noting that right now. She doesn't go into, well, she does go into being vulnerable. She goes into just do it scared kind of concept and idea. Yeah, remember this book was put together in the early 2000s, and she had been teaching in the, as far back as the 40s and 50s. Like
Yeah.
she's
Classic.
she's yeah, but she does talk about handling rejection and building resilience. And that is so important. Again, it's not something that I was going to touch on for the podcast today. I was going to say, hey, it talks about this too, but it is so important that you are able to do that. It's not all glitz and glamour in the acting world, as everybody knows. It looks like it is when you follow everybody on Instagram, but there's the harsh reality that you're going to get rejected time and time and time again, both as an actor and as an entrepreneur. I mean, how
Absolutely.
many times it feels like you're throwing spaghetti at the wall, right?
Yeah.
We
Well,
try
I've had
so
decades
hard.
of experience with rejection in acting, so I should be so
Yeah,
good at this in business.
it's a constant companion, right?
Yeah,
Like it
it
doesn't
is.
and you know what, in any industry, and I'm going to say especially in acting, because I saw La La Land, I know what it's like. When she goes in for that audition and there are 300 women wanting the same one part.
Yep.
So yeah, it's going to be out there, and whether it's like a failed sales pitch or a rejected proposal, a project or a launch that you threw out there that didn't come out as expected, there are going to be those setbacks. There's going to be those rejections. So that's why, and she does talk about it in the book, and that's why we as entrepreneurs need to develop that resilience. We need to learn to bounce back and adapt and keep moving forward. I think that's the defining factor between those who are going to succeed and those who are just going to give up and go back to a miserable 9-to-5 job, if that's why they started their own business, right?
Yeah.
It's, just to, like, from personal experience, if I gave up, okay, so I gave up on the whole acting thing. We're going to just call me out for that one. But if I had given up on photography, because when I first thought, I like photography, I want to start this was long before the world of digital. And there are no photographs of my kids when they were little. And that was because I was a dummy. And I was like, let me take all the photographs because I'm going to be a photographer when I grow up. But I didn't know how to load a goddamn camera. Sorry, can I swear? I didn't know how to load a camera.
Oh man, now we have to put a warning on this episode.
My bad. Hey, I'm doing my best here. I would get my roles back from film developers. I can't even remember what they're called anymore, from the lab. And it would be,
man, you are dating yourself so hard, but I remember it too. So,
yeah, they give me back a blank role. And it was literally a blank roll of film. And they're like, well, why did you want us to develop this? And it was because I didn't know what I was doing and I didn't know how. And had I stopped, I never would have had what I found a hugely successful career, a very fulfilling career, and met some of the most amazing people and have some of my best friends started as clients. So it's one of those things where that resilience in the ability to bounce back from the mistakes and the rejection and being able to adapt and keep moving forward is that defining factor between, being successful and not. It's embracing it all as like a learning experience. And yes, Stella talks about that in the book, because if you are an actor who has never been rejected, I call bullshit. Sorry. Oh, well, yeah. No, now we are really doing a disclaimer.
We've already got a warning, so it's all good.
Yeah.
So, no, I think even more so than calling BS, it's more about then you're an actor that's not putting yourself out there.
Yeah, true.
I mean, I can call myself an actor and like audition for one thing that I know I'm going to get and be like, I'm batting 1,000. I always get what I go out for. And it's like, well, then you're not going out for much, are you?
Yeah, if you're only going out for the ones you're going to get. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's not possible to get everything that you go out for. And it's not possible for every single launch, in your business to be successful, or for every sales pitch to be, something that you sell. And I almost just used a term. It's funny. I almost just said it's not possible for every sales pitch to be a win. But I stopped myself because of the book that I'm reading for the next episode that literally opened with talking about how much the concept of winning and losing in business is like a misnomer. It doesn't exist. So it literally affected me not saying that right now. That's so funny. But yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things where, if you don't put yourself out there, you'll never fail. Of course, we all know this, but if you never put yourself out there, then you're kind of failing by default, really, because you can't succeed either.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. When you're talking about that, the actor that only goes for roles that they know they're going to get, and then they're batting 1,000. It made me think of, and we watched Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet this weekend. I don't know why, but I just felt like watching it.
Such a great movie.
I love that movie. Did you remember Paul Rudd is in that movie? And I was going,
wait, what?
Yeah, right? That's what I said. So the role he has in that movie, it's during the party at the Capulets, and he's the astronaut that is like supposed to be marrying Juliet, and he's saying all those little flaky dances, and he's making a total tool out of himself, while Juliet's looking over at Romeo and giggling like, oh my God, who is this loser?
Oh my
And
gosh, I don't
it's
even.
Paul freaking Rudd, who
Wow.
was not Paul freaking Rudd
At the
back
time.
then.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
He's in the film for all of 60 seconds. He makes a complete ass out of himself. And had he went, I'm too good for that, he never, I really don't think he would have gotten noticed, because you get noticed in this one. And I'm not saying that that's his defining role that made him who he is, but I am going to point out he looks the exact same. So all of those jokes about him not aging, they're true.
Oh no, he totally doesn't age. He looks exactly the same.
The
Ridiculous.
exact same. And that movie came out like
that
30
movie,
years ago.
Okay. So that movie was how long before Clueless?
He was in Clueless?
Yeah.
I don't remember. Wow.
He's the one who ends up with Cher. Where have you been?
I saw it once in the theater. I was what, 12?
Oh my gosh. You need to go back and rewatch that movie, because it will make you so happy. No, he's the one who's like the stepbrother or whatever that ends up with Cher.
You're right.
He's so cute in that. It's so funny, because I guess he is probably in hindsight the one you're supposed to like from that movie. But I absolutely did, because he's Paul Rudd. But yeah, so now I'm curious though. I mean, obviously that came after Romeo and Juliet. It had to have.
It had to have. I think Romeo, I'm not going to click right now because we'll get all clickety clacky on our. We'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah. Because now I'm super curious.
Yeah.
How long before? Because it's got to be close to the same time frame.
It had to have been. I mean, they're both 30 years old, so it had to have been around the same time when he was still just doing little itty bitty roles. And
don't say that. You just made me so old. 30 years ago?
I shot with film. Like, come on.
So did I. But I mean, there's a difference between. Wow, that's just. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll just gloss right over that.
We're going to go back to the book. How about we go back to the book?
Okay. We're young.
Yeah. So the book, Stella Adler's The Art of Acting, I believe. The thing about it, okay. I got so off track that I'm all just thinking of Paul Rudd now. So
well,
thanks.
Easy to do. Sorry.
Yeah. So yes, she does talk about disappointment, and she does talk about resilience, and it goes into things like confidence is a huge thing. Confidence is huge in both running a business and acting, and I'm not going to dive deep into that. But one of the other things that really hit home for me for the book that you will see all over the internet, if you're Googling how to be an entrepreneur and marketing and all of that stuff, one of the big things that sells, and I don't know if it's selling because it's selling you on selling, but one of the big things, if that was even a sentence, I feel like, okay,
no,
I'm going to take myself again.
Followed
Chrissy
that.
Snow.
Good.
That. Great. Storytelling.
Oh,
because
100%. Yeah.
What is acting, right? Acting is storytelling, and in business it's the same deal. They're like magic wands for entrepreneurs. We need to captivate our audience, and the best way to do that is by telling stories, creating that emotional connection by highlighting the depth of the humanity that we are, going, you're not just buying a product, you're buying from me, and tapping into the craft about your brand, because you're not just selling a product or a service, right? You want to share an experience, you want to share a journey. They don't buy what you're selling, they buy what you're doing and why you're selling it and who you are. They buy the story. And
not just your story. I mean, your story for sure, but also the story you tell them about the transformation you will provide for them, right?
Yes.
And you just made me think of what another book that I want to do for one of my episodes later, which is Donald Miller, The Story Brand.
Oh yeah, I was looking at 100%. That last night.
I mean, I've read that book multiple times. I get something new from it every time. So stay tuned, because that's going to be a future episode for sure.
It never gets old, right? So
no.
And that again, in this, when you are doing the parallel between acting and being an entrepreneur, that they're in line again. I mean, when you think about it, she is teaching in this book how to be an actor, right? How to embody another character. And when you look at the book from the perspective as a business owner, she's teaching you how to be a business owner, how to embody sales and ownership and doing the right thing by your clients. And I think that that's huge. And when it comes to the storytelling portion of it, like you said, it's the story of the transformation. It's the story about a challenge that needs to be overcome. And whether you overcame it and that's how you became this business owner, or how you're going to assist your clients to overcome it, it's all through empathy and, you know, emotional connection.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the art of acting, emotional connections, right?
Right. Well, and relationship too. But I think, and she may talk about this, so sorry if I steal thunder, but
yeah,
another thing that's so important and really defines the difference between a good actor and a mediocre actor, and I think 100% applies to a good business owner and a mediocre business owner, is like the art of listening.
Oh, 100%. I'm bad at that. I am
Yeah,
an interrupter,
we all are. We all are, because
but yeah,
you know, we have something to say, and it's like it's
Mhm.
so hard to not be formulating your next sentence while the
Mhm.
person's talking, which is a horrible thing to do. And in acting, it's one of those things where often people feel like, well, why do I have to listen, because I already know what my next line is. It's not like, I already know what they're saying, because I've seen the script and we've rehearsed this to death, but I also know what I have to say next because it's literally written for me. It's not like I have to come up with it. So why is listening important? And in the world of acting, one of the reasons that listening is so important is because it creates the authenticity, right?
Yes.
When you're watching as an audience, we know that these lines are scripted and that you guys are saying what you're told to say. It's not like we think, oh, wow, how do you come up with that? But it feels more realistic and it sucks us into it more when we see the person listening to the other person's lines, what they're saying, because then it makes us feel as though they are formulating what they're about to say next.
Mm-hmm.
And, in the world of acting, that's kind of a mirage, if you want to call it that. But in business, it's 100%. Like, I think something that I have personally struggled with for sure, and that I strive to get better at and better at, is that every time I have a sales call or a consultation with someone, I feel this need to talk a ton through those situations, because I feel like, well, this person's expecting to get something from me in this situation.
Yeah.
Therefore, I must be talking so that I can explain something to them or make them see my value, right? But it's in fact the exact opposite, because 9 times out of 10, what they want is for someone to listen to what they actually need and to what they're actually saying they need help with, and then respond with, well, I hear you, and here's what I can help you with. And it feels so counterintuitive, but it takes so much pressure off of the business owner. Let me tell you, the times that I remember to do that they're so much easier, those encounters, because I spend most of the time just listening and taking notes and soaking up what the person is saying. It's just, it's so much less pressure, but it just doesn't feel like the right thing. It feels like we should be explaining and showing our value, and I can give you this and I can do this and da-da-da. And it's like, no, wrong answer. Listen.
100%. That's why I feel like I'm a horrible listener, is because I just want to keep spewing out things that can be helpful, and that isn't always helpful. Now 100%, I say that a lot, but I don't think she goes into the art of listening as much as what you just said, which is pure gold. But she does touch on emotional intelligence, which is basically the art of reading the room. And when you are reading the room and listening to your customer, you're going to know their needs, right? So, and understanding what they need is what's going to make you succeed, and understanding their emotional aspect of what they're doing. So that's where listening comes in, because it's 100% going to help with the communication and any kind of conflict resolution that they may have. And it shows that you are compassionate and you are listening and you are a leader in your field. So as much as she doesn't talk about the art of listening, she does go into emotional intelligence, which I think does have a bit of a parallel
Oh,
between the
absolutely.
two, because
Well,
you're
you
not
can't
going to be able to read the room if you don't listen to the room,
exactly.
right?
That's exactly
Yeah,
right. Well, and
100%.
something that I've experienced sort of recently, I guess in the last year or so, when working with a newer consultant that came into my corporate job, when we were talking about like the technical things that we were working on, because this was very much on like the systems and process side of things. In addition to listening, and something that she did that I have tried to start to embody myself, because I, as the recipient, it felt so great for someone to do this, is that at the end of all this listening, she then responded with, okay, so what I heard you say was,
That's
and then
huge.
recapped what I said. So it's one of those things that, again, if you look at it from the outside, feels like, well, that's redundant. She just said that. Why am I going to repeat it all? But the point is going a step beyond listening to comprehension, to understanding, so that if I did misunderstand something that they said, I can be corrected before I go down the path of helping with something that doesn't need to be helped, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And as the recipient of that, as the person who was heard, you feel so much more heard when the person repeats it back to you and they actually got it.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
That comes down to just active listening, and I think
Yeah.
that's one of the things I just really grilled into my kids, or drilled into the, I don't know, I beat my kids into active listening. There's there's definitely a difference between I heard you and I'm listening to you.
Absolutely.
And when she responds to you going, okay, what I heard is definitely one way to make sure that the lines of communication is open. And for all of our listeners out there that are coaches, that line will get you so far with your client that it is crazy. And it is so simple to just actively listen. And by saying what I'm hearing is, and reiterating what they're telling you, it's going to make them fall in love with you all the more, because you are connecting, right? You
Yeah.
are understanding their needs and going to be able to move forward with them in that transformation that you're offering.
Yeah. And I think so many business owners, especially, but if they're seeking out the help of a coach or somebody in that realm, a mentor of some kind, they often feel kind of invisible.
Yeah.
And, there's so many people out there just spewing content on them. Do this, do this, do this. But they feel like it just, I don't know, it like washes over them, because they're kind of invisible in that, they don't necessarily know how to apply that massive content to themselves and their own struggles. And so when they come and talk to a coach, the most important thing that they need to feel is visible.
Heard. Yeah.
Heard. Exactly. So simply doing that alone, even without the added layer of repeating it back and getting that clarity and making sure you guys are on the same page, is already a huge step. But then when you take it that extra step forward and show them that you're listening and that they were heard, I mean, that's everything.
100%. If you are a coach and you're an online coach and you're doing discovery calls, that's your golden ticket to getting booked right there. Is actively listening, letting them know that you heard and understand what they're going through, and then letting them know that you are able to help, not just spewing out stuff, which we all want to do. We all just want to be like, do this, do this, do that. It's information overload. And that's why you need to be careful, right? And again, that comes down to authenticity, because you can get that information anywhere. But if you're going and getting it anywhere, are they really listening to you, or are you just a number on their email list, or you know what I mean, or part of their membership? You're just one more $20 a month to the $3,020 a month members they already have.
Right.
You want to make sure that you're making the right decision for both you and your business, and for your coach. I mean, come on, you got to respect them as well. And if they're not a right fit for you because they're not listening and they're not in touch with you and what you need, drop them. It's
Bless and
not
release.
that hard.
Bless and release.
Open, bless and release. I love that. Open the line of communication first. I mean,
Yeah.
we both experienced hiring somebody to help us through something and felt that we were not being heard. We were not being listened to. But if you open that line of communication going, look, I'm not feeling it. How can we make this better? They might just need that calling out
Right.
to improve and to actively listen. But sometimes it's just who they are.
Right. That's
Right?
absolutely right.
Absolutely. Wow, we have been all over the place.
We have, but you know,
today.
it's for once our tangents actually make sense. I mean, maybe
Isn't that
not
great?
Paul Rudd. That one might have gone a little off the rails, but
Yeah,
whatever.
it's Paul Rudd. It's okay.
But so we don't make this a
Mhm.
super long episode because we know we could talk about this a lot. And you know what?
Absolutely.
Maybe if it's a really popular episode, we'll come back to it because I could see plenty of additional conversation on this. But I know I kind of like pushed you to certain topics. Was there anything in particular you really, really, really wanted to say about this book that we didn't get to yet?
There is one thing, and then I will wrap it up so that you're not here for over an hour. So how do I touch it? So you've heard me say a million times, I have misquoted a wonderful commercial that I cannot find for the life of me. Learn always, always learn. Yeah, said it so many times.
This is the famous milk commercial.
Yeah, well, apparently I'm wrong because I can't find it, but I swear it's a milk commercial. It's probably some silly Canadian Mandela effect. You never know. But
either way, the sentiment rings true.
Exactly. And it is covered in the book that you always want to perfect your craft. You always want to keep going. You always want to keep learning. You're never going to know it all. So I think with the concept of being an entrepreneur, there's always more to learn, whether it's in your industry, whether it's a little bit more about marketing. Even if you have someone doing your marketing for you, you should know the ins and outs of it, even if you're not doing it, so that in the event that you need to, you are capable. So that's one of the things that I found that she really drove home, was to always hone in on your craft and always be on top of it.
Yeah, I love that.
It's 100%. So I think to really grasp everything that this book and Stella's wisdom about acting in Stella Adler's The Art of Acting, I think it contains so many golden nuggets about not only your approach to business, but to life. Like, it's just, there's so much in there that we can glean from and use as inspiration to better our businesses. And I absolutely think that everybody should read this book. And it's always one of the books I'm asked, what book do you recommend to new entrepreneurs? And it is 100% for the 30th time today, this book.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
I love it. And as always, we'll have links to the book in the show notes so that you can easily go and get it for yourself.
Yes. And links to, Paul Rudd's birthday, and to
well,
find out.
We don't need his birthday per se. We don't need to call the man out on his age.
All right, I'll give you that.
I am at least curious to see how far apart this little bit part in Romeo and Juliet versus a pretty significant role in Clueless, I would say.
Yeah,
I mean, he wasn't one of the like main people, but he's kind of important.
Yeah. Okay, and I think that's amazing. And I want to close this off today because I wrote the cutest, corniest little closing that I'm so proud of.
Okay, go for it.
We hope you found this episode inspiring and informative. Remember, the stage is set and the world of business is your stage. So break a leg in all your entrepreneurial endeavors. And until next time, keep chasing those dreams and making them a reality.
If you guys want to connect with us on social media, Joelene, do you want to tell them how they can do that?
Sure. You can follow us on Instagram at Success Through Community, or join our free or paid communities over at Patreon, which is patreon.com/STC Productions.
The best way that you can support the podcast is to make sure that you are subscribed wherever you're listening and leave us a review. That's the only way that new people will find and join our community. The Success Through Community podcast is hosted by Kelly Gable and Joelene Mills, and all episodes are solely the opinions of the respective host. Our sound production and editing is done by Kelly Gable, and all visual creative, including our logo, was created by Joelene Mills. The Success Through Community podcast is an STC production.